Hello, and welcome back to the Logging Off podcast. Real quick, before the episode officially starts, I need to sincerely apologize for the audio issues. I basically messed up some settings on my microphone, and my voice kind of pops in and out. The volume lowers erratically. It gets better later in the episode, but yes, I apologize for that. I hope it does not ruin your experience, and you're still able to enjoy this episode. Are you working late because you were singing?
I'm working late because I'm a singer.
I got sick of that song. I got sick of that one. And I got sick of the other one too because TikTok.
Please.
Yeah, it was like every TikTok ruined it for me.
Well,
Sabina.
no, we have to support Sabrina because she's snuffing out Taylor Swift.
That's true. Releasing 10 versions of the same song just to stay on top.
That's what
Sorry,
Taylor Swift is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were saying
I know.
Sabrina's doing. No.
No. Sabrina's popping out banger after banger.
Yeah.
And T Swift is.
Listen to this acoustic version. I originally released it acoustic and then I remixed it electric and now I'm going back to acoustic.
I heard the acoustic version doesn't actually have different vocals either. It's just like the same vocals with acoustics or like slightly different. Sorry, we're not big T Swift.
I like her country stuff.
I really okay, let me give her flowers where they're due. I loved her music when I was in junior high, and her Fearless album really helped me get through a lot of difficult stuff. But I'm over it. The last time I talked about T Swift and it made it to YouTube, someone was like, I've been subscribed to for 2 years. I'm unsubscribing for that Taylor Swift comment. I was like,
okay, didn't ask.
okay, see ya.
No, her country stuff is. I mean, I'll still jam out to some of the country stuff, the old stuff, but I don't know, the pop stuff. It's just like I feel like it's
shrug to me.
I don't like to call people sellouts, and because honestly, it's like go get your bag. Like that's what I really think at the end of the day. But it's like it just feels like it was such a step lower.
Yeah,
it's like,
I don't know what happened.
You really sold out.
Well,
But get your bag, I guess.
Yeah,
She's getting it, that's for sure.
I guess at what cost? So that she can take a 45-minute jet ride to CVS to pick up her toothpaste.
True.
Started off today with Heater, roasting Taylor Swift.
Anyways.
Anyway, welcome back to the Logging Off podcast,
Welcome
episode
back.
4.
You know what's crazy?
Yeah.
Sorry. I know. So we filmed the first episode back in April, right? And it just kind of like sat dormant for a while.
For 3 months.
For 3 months. And then I started my comic room podcast. Mm-hmm. And I was like on that before we started this. And then we were still like fleshing things out. Yet we're still on the same episode release because we had that one episode. So like now, like each week, like today, this morning, I dropped episode 4 of the comic room.
And we're recording episode 4.
We're recording episode 4, so that'll come out Wednesday. So I was just like, I realized that last week when you said episode 3, I was like, I just released episode 3 this morning. What in the world? But yeah, it's just weird because the timelines are so different. Like when we started recording, when I started building out the room, when we started doing this, like
I know.
I feel like we had recorded that first podcast way before we bought this table.
Oh yeah. Way before we even knew we were moving into a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a crazy time.
And then, yeah.
And now we're just an annoying podcast house. There's a good chance I'm going to start recording my own podcast soon enough that I can talk. I have a full sheet, not this sheet, but I have a full sheet of topics that I have been saving for times that I want to yap. So
Do it.
I'm just waiting because I don't want to be like, I don't know. There's just something about releasing 3 podcasts in less than a month that just feels a little bit self-involved, self-indulgent.
They're all different.
They are all
Like
different.
I'm sure that there's people here who are like coming over and watching like my comic stuff, but
True.
like my comic podcast is getting like 200 to 300 views a week. This is getting 1,000. So obviously not everybody that's watching this is going over and watching. So it's not like the viewership is just very different. There's going to be more overlap for you than there is for me for sure. But yeah, at least I guess that's why I don't feel like I'm self-involved because it's different people listening to me about very different things.
True.
So
You're right.
there's that. But
I'm always just looking for an excuse not to start my own podcast, even though people have been asking it from me for like years.
well, that's one of the things that I'll talk about when we get into the thing. But yeah, that's one of the things I told you was just to like, don't overwhelm yourself. Like, let's get into a rhythm with this, and then once we're solidified with this, then you branch out from there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's all a little bit scary because I'm branching out and restructuring just like my content, my own mental standards for my own content. Like, not that I'm moving away from gaming, but I'm viewing gaming as less of like a home base, where it has been for the last 2 years. And now I'm viewing kind of myself as a home base, and then I figure out where I'm most leaning toward, that particular week. So it's a little bit scary to not be leaning on a game as much as I used to, but it's fun. It's exciting. This is where content creation gets very thrilling. It's when you are doing something you're scared of.
But then the gaming will come back full force in the next month or two.
Sure. It will come back.
Natlin.
Yeah, Natlin.
We already talked about that.
Yeah. We'll
Everything has its time.
Yeah. I'm excited for the world. I'm excited for the map.
Yeah, I'm excited to just see it.
Like, yeah. That's like one of the biggest bummers about this whole thing is that I'm certain that the characters are going to be lovable and their stories are going to be great because the Hoyoverse writers are awesome.
For sure.
But because Hoyoverse is a company, but also made up of a bunch of different people with different freedoms, there's always going to be this shadow over the characters. Anyway, so the topic for today's podcast, which did not appear to me in a dream, I thought of it this morning, was to talk about things that we wish we told things that I wish we could, I'm gonna get it this time.
Mm-hmm.
Things I wish I could tell myself, or things that we wish we could tell ourselves if we could go back in time. So I have 3. I actually have 4, but the 4th one's kind of a joke.
Are yours all serious? Oh, okay.
I have, they're not like sad necessarily, but no, they're serious, I guess.
I'll just alternate between them.
Yes.
Depending if we go through 2 or 4 or whatever.
Well, I'm assuming if they're unserious, then they won't have like a lot of backstory or
one of them will.
Anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have 3 significant ones and one that's kind of a joke. And Joshua has 3. One that is kind of serious and 2 that are somewhat lighthearted.
I have 4.
Oh, 4.
2 that are serious, 2 that are lighthearted. But the 4th one,
nice.
I can't. The 4th one just slipped my mind. Should have wrote it down. It'll come back. But I have 3.
That's why I write stuff down. I feel comfortable having some sort of something in my hand, at least.
To
write on. Yes. So, disclaimer, or preface rather, this is not done in a spirit of regret or like, oh, I wish, no remorse or wishing things were different for us specifically. But looking at our demographics and looking especially at my demographics, I think most of our audience is younger than us by 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years. So hopefully you can hear what our, I guess, lessons we wish we could have learned earlier, but have learned now. You can listen to them and perhaps glean something for yourself in the now.
Yeah, it seems like the demographic is getting ready to go into college.
Yeah.
In college or coming out of college.
Yeah.
So those are all eras of life that we
have experienced.
that are behind us.
Right.
Left college quite a while ago.
Yeah. It dawned on me that I graduated high school 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
You graduated college 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
What the heck? Old.
You old fart.
Okay. So, Rock, paper, scissors. Who goes first?
Sure.
Winner goes.
Best 2 out of 3 or one and done?
Who goes first of winner or loser?
I don't know. Winner goes first.
Okay, winner goes first. Yeah, best 2 out of 3.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Wait.
Wait, I have to do it.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Yeah. Okay, I go first. Okay. I'm very curious to hear what you think about this one. So I'll say it and then I'll give a bit of a backstory. My first one is better to have no friends than bad friends. So I'll try to keep this short. I have talked about this on stream before, but I had pretty much from kindergarten up until about 10th grade, I would say, I had good friends were like far and few between. And it was kind of a repeated experience in my life that people would be friends with me for a while and then would like move on to somebody else. And I would be kind of like the either fully abandoned, like intentionally, purposely left behind, or I'd be like the bonus friend. So going into 6th grade, I went to a new school and I was very nervous about finding friends. And I was a little bit weird, I wasn't like preppy or anything. I wouldn't say I necessarily fit in with the I don't want to say cool kids because most of the kids in my 6th grade class were nice, but like the popular kids, I guess. So I was pretty much ready to like latch on to anyone who would who would have me. And the first friends I made in 6th grade were not necessarily bad to me, but they were very bad influences. And I got exposed to a lot of things that I wish that I hadn't. I wish I had more. Well, I wish I had been an adult or a more, an older teenager before I had been exposed to things. And like my mom did her best to let me make my own decisions, but also guide me and protect me. Like one of the girls, one of her sisters was like into demonic stuff. And I went over to her house once before finding this out. And then my mom was like, yeah, you're never coming over there again. And the friend, she would bring like pornographic manga to school and would show it to people. And it was just like, I don't know. It was enticing and interesting, but I wished that I hadn't been exposed to some of the things that I was exposed to.
Yeah.
Now those girls, I think, all eventually went to other schools, so that one kind of happened naturally. But the next time that happened was with a friend who I became friends with in 7th grade, and she was fine. But TLDR, new person, new girl comes to school. My friend decides that she wants to be friends with this girl more than me. So she latches on her and then completely cuts me off. And that happened. We kind of reconciled later that year. And then she did the same thing to me again in 9th grade. So it was just, and if I had been willing, I guess, to be more alone and less just like, please be friends with me. Please, I just don't want to be by myself. I think I probably could have avoided a lot of heartbreak and trust issues. But I'm grateful for the friends that I did make when I was in 10th grade. 10th grade, I would say, was the first time I had like really, really good friends who helped kind of heal those like fear attachment issues. But yeah, I think I wish that I had been more comfortable less afraid of not having friends or just being seen by myself, I guess. It's more about the appearance than the actual experience. Or at least that's what I remember. Like, I didn't want to be alone at the lunch table or like not have anyone to sit with. That was like suicide. So I think if I would like to think that if I had been a little bit less afraid, I might have been more selective with friends and not just taken whoever would accept me and whoever
They're fighting.
They're fighting in the background. Well, they're playing fighting. What was I saying? I would have been, because the other problem is that I would conform to them a lot because I just didn't want them to leave me.
Yeah.
So that built a lot of bad habits in me because of that fear. So I think desperation leads to bad decisions and poor judgment. And I have experienced that in myself plenty of times. So, no one wants to not have friends, but I would say I think that having no friends is better than having friends that are either going to over the top hurt you or are horrible influences on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious. I don't think I've ever said that fully to you. I'm curious what your thoughts are because we had different experiences growing up.
I mean, you've like, I feel like all those things were just implied when you've told me those stories.
Yeah.
So it's not like, yeah, it doesn't sound like it's new to me, coming from you at least. But, man, girls are different than dudes.
Mm.
I just feel like dudes wouldn't really do that.
No, probably not.
It's kind of like, it's interesting because you could have like a big, I mean, even like in like my like group of friends now, like I would say there's like a bunch of dudes in there and like we're all like cool with each other.
Yeah.
And then there's just like certain parts of that like bigger group that's like smaller, close connected. And it's not even like you have to be part of, like there's a lot of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Like me and this person are close. And so like, we'll hang out and like talk in a group chat or whatever. And then like me and this person and that same other person are also tight. So like we'll be in a group chat, but they might not be as close as like these other two people.
And you have different relationships with each of those people.
Yeah. And so, and I'm like, there's definitely circles that I'm not in and that doesn't like bother me.
Yeah.
But
that's how it's supposed to be. I think girls just get really jealous and insecure and like nervous about rejection from all fronts. Nervous about rejection from like boys and friends. So yeah, I think that's where the viciousness comes from. But like, I honestly also think I just got really unlucky, but also because I was so desperate for friends, I was taking whoever would have me.
Yeah.
And that girl who cut me off twice, I should have learned from the first time that she was not going to be a good friend to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn, and I had to experience that again. Thankfully, at the time, the second time I was much more prepared to deal with it, and just, I was willing to be without her and without like a buddy, a best friend, because a best friend is like stability.
Yeah.
But she was very unstable at the time, at least. I don't know what's going on with her now, but I was able to be comfortable with losing that. And I had also started to become friends with like Alyssa. So,
yeah.
Which was my first like really true friend that didn't come with a bunch of drama.
Yeah. 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 Guys are definitely it's a lot different. I don't think like if guys don't like each other, like truly don't like each other, it's going to be very obvious. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be like hidden, and they're not going to like
not passive aggressive.
Right. And they're not going to mask a friendship for a certain amount of time to like, for the sake of like, oh, well, this works now. Like, I'm just going to wait until I find a better friend. Like, if this sounds sexist, I'm sorry. I don't think it is, but I don't think guys are petty enough to like put up a friendship for the sake of a friendship.
Put up a friendship. What does that mean?
Like that one friend from middle school to 9th grade who like dropped you twice. Like a guy's not going to befriend somebody, have them as a friend until they find a better friend.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly think that was
I'm not calling women petty. I'm just saying like that. That seems to be like at the heart of like why you would do that.
I'm trying to not speak poorly of this person because if she were to ever hear this, I don't think, okay, yes, like I think we're all responsible for our own actions, but her specifically, I genuinely think that she had like emotional instability and was like, she was a very intense person, which made her kind of fun to be around until it wasn't fun to be around. So I honestly think you might be true. I think girls generally are more petty than guys, but or more of tendency to be petty. But I think this girl in particular, I think I just got really unlucky with her.
Well, look, I mean, you can say or not say whatever you want. Like I'm responding to like what you're telling me. And obviously that's also like just a kind of a stereotype that like you see like Mean Girls.
Yeah, Mean Girls.
So that's just like a stereotype that girl friendships kind of carry, is that it's you're kind of always barely hanging on by a thread.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah,
I wonder where that comes from.
But with guys, it's like, oh, you like video games? Sick, dude. Let's game together,
play.
And that's it. And then, yeah, in general, like across the board for anybody, like you know, friendships, they'll have their seasons, and they come and they go, and sometimes they fade off nicely, and you look back and you're like, oh, what happened to that? And other times it's a little bit more of a harsh cutoff and stings, but it is what it is. But yeah, it's hard. I can't really. It's kind of funny because one of my points also kind of has to do with friendships a little bit, but a little bit, or a much different vein, I guess. And definitely like I'm the one on the wrong side of the friendship, where I would say. But yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say before then, but yeah. Oh, friendships have their seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes they end smoothly, sometimes they don't. But
yeah, I think with girls, it just a lot of it in like elementary school, junior high, high school, especially. I think it just stems from a lot of nervousness and fear, and like I don't want to say competitiveness, but it can be competitive. It's all very like an unhealthy view, and hopefully most people grow past it in time. And
he's singing.
You singing, ready?
He normally doesn't meow like that in the middle of the day. He's normally a nighttime meower.
I don't know if you can hear him, but he's like trilling in the background. But yeah, the reason often girls struggle with girl friendships in high school, that is probably a deeply studied topic, with lots of complicated root issues that I would rather not get into right now. But yeah, in practicality,
I feel like guys, the problem is more so just like peacocking and like ego, especially when it comes to like being around girls or like being in a competitive setting. But I feel like I never really like partook in those things because it didn't matter to me to like,
it's good,
be the coolest. And I always felt like I always knew I wasn't the coolest, and I was like okay with that. So
I knew I wasn't the coolest,
where I was like, I'm not going to be cooler than this guy. So it's like, why am I going to, why am I going to try? Like,
I thought I was ugly for most of my, until like maybe 10th grade, 9th grade, maybe. I never thought that I was pretty.
Oh.
So I just.
You're the prettiest girl in the world.
Thank you, mate. Your opinion is the only one that matters to me. So, yeah.
My turn?
Your turn.
All right. So, mine are not thought out sentences. They're like words, kind of.
That's fine.
They're like words with situations behind it. And like we said earlier, like this isn't done in the spirit of regret. Like I'm glad I went through these things.
Yeah.
To learn
Me
them.
Me too.
Because even if I were to go back and tell myself these things, I wouldn't listen. Anyways, like you have to go through these situations to learn.
Exactly. I think that's true for all of these.
But I wish I would have learned patience in friendships a little bit earlier. I'm thinking of one of them. I'm thinking of one close friend that I kind of tainted that relationship a lot because I just wasn't patient with the way that I was going about trying to like kind of help speak truth into their life and kind of just help them see things that they might not be seeing.
Confronting.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like I was definitely a little bit like abrasive and like quick to point these things out, where I could have been a lot slower, patient, long suffering with it. And it was my best friend in high school, and I just kind of
Throw a wrench in it.
Yeah. And then I would say there's like, I would say the way that I went about it was wrong. I don't think the things that I was trying to point out, I don't think I was wrong about those things, but definitely the way that I was going about it was definitely the wrong way to go about it. And then I like had felt that tension. So I felt that tension that I had created by not handling the situation as best as I could have. And so like when we had graduated, we went to the same college for the first, I only went to that college for a semester, but I essentially like had just cut him off because it was easier. I think we had both kind of like cut each other off. But I was definitely like a little bit more like awkward when, like he was around, and I think he was definitely like a little bit more, like willing to kind of talk and stuff like that. So, but I did hang out with him like a year or two ago. And we got to hang out. We went to a bar and just like caught up, and unless I'm totally misremembering, I think I had apologized for the way that things had gone down. And the relationship didn't go back to what it was, and I'm not sure that it ever will. And I'm not like waiting for it to or anything. But yeah, so that one sucked. And then another situation, not as close of a friend, but I should have just kept my mouth shut. I just shouldn't have said anything. But it totally like, yeah. I'm not going to get into the deals of that one or the details of that one at all, but same thing. Like I wasn't patient when I could have like just sat back, and let things play out. I was just like quick to pull the trigger. And that essentially like the second that happened, they were listening to me, and then it just like kind of blew up, when they took that information, to other parties and yeah. So in hindsight, it's really dumb, but yeah.
I see.
So I would just be patient with my friends and I think there's definitely like a sense of, in hindsight, I think the attitude was like, I'm better than you, so I can like help.
Like
I can
I'm
help
right.
You. Yeah.
I'm right. I have to say it, so it doesn't matter that much how I say it.
Right. Yeah. So.
Sure.
So yeah, now I'm maybe to a fault. I'm a little bit too patient now, but like, I don't know. I've seen myself not go about things the right way then. So, yeah. So just patient with friends and patience with myself. Like I don't have to shoot from the hip every time something's
true,
not as it should be.
Right. Just because something is moving slowly doesn't mean it's not moving. So a gentle correction, either in yourself or in someone else, like you can't expect instant results. That's like a romanticized view of how things happen in life. Like most changes are difficult, and changes are not like, they're not instant ever.
Yeah.
Because habits and vices are all fighting for your attention and for other people's attention.
There really is just so much wisdom in like part of the patience. There's just so much wisdom in truly taking the logs out of your own eyes before you take the speck of dust that's in your friend's eyes. And so, yeah, just not.
What's that phrase? If you're pointing one finger, there's 4 fingers pointing back at you. That's almost always true.
3.
Oh, yeah,
3 and a half.
3. 3 and 1 pointing up. It's true. There's always something to correct in ourselves. So honestly, probably a good practice is if you see something in someone else, to first evaluate yourself and see if there's anything in that same vein that you need to correct in yourself.
Yeah, I don't have any data to support this, but I'm pretty sure like the things that bother us the most are the things that we kind of dislike the most about us.
I've heard the phrase, the things that you most despise in other people are the things that you see in yourself.
Yeah. Which
so like the things that
sense.
because you're attuned to see it.
Yeah.
And like if someone is doing something that you see yourself doing and you think you're being secretive about it, but this person is doing it clearly, it makes you angry.
Yeah. There's also like, how am I trying to say this? There's some things that I've noticed where some people like have this trait and it really bothers me. And then I'll like sit back and like reflect. And then I'm just like, you know what? That person is just way more on the nose about it. Like I'm just sneakier about it than that person is. Like that person's just dumb and doesn't know how to hide it. I know how to hide it. And
you're also more attuned to see it.
Yeah.
Because you yourself practice those things.
Yeah. So there's a part of me like I've seen that a few times in my own life where I'm like, dude, why are you like, at least it's annoying. Like,
yeah,
like you're being annoying the way that like all of this is. And then you're like, well, I do the same thing, but I'm like,
but for me, it's okay.
But I know how to hide it a little bit better than you do. And then you get mad because you're like, why do you not know how to hide it? Like, can you not?
Right. Can you not be so obvious?
Yeah. Be like me.
Yeah.
Be sneaky like me.
It's weird. It invokes like a selfish anger in us.
Yeah.
And like, it's totally a pride thing too. She's like, I'm doing this secretly and smart. I'm doing the same thing that you're doing, but I'm doing it smarter.
Yeah.
And people don't see it. But if you do it and you're obvious about it, you know, there's all these synapses, these things start connecting in your head. And like, what if people start seeing it in me? And then you get nervous and insecure and angry. So then you take it out on the other person.
Yeah. Friendships are tough. There's a lot of egos and there's a lot of pride, and we're all messed up people. And
yes.
Especially as
absolutely
you're younger and you're getting older. The younger you are, probably the more messed up you are because you're still figuring out who you are, and you're still working out those things about you that you don't like. And it's not until you get older where you're like, you've just learned, you've gone through so much, you've gained so much wisdom, you've learned so much, and kind of, that ego, life has just kicked that ego out of you when you're older. But when you're younger, that's definitely not the case. But that's why it's important to have older people in your life.
Absolutely. Who are smarter than you, wiser than you, and can call things out in the same way that you might be able to call out someone who's younger and who is practicing the same things that you are, but more obviously and less sneakily. You also need that. I need that. Yeah. So I guess probably good.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Bless you.
If you're the smartest person in your life, or if you think you're the smartest person in your life, that's bad. You should not be the smartest person unless you're the oldest person. But even then, I'm sure there's a lot that even old people would probably be like, man, I have so much to learn from these young people.
And so, if you think you're the smartest person in the room, there's probably one of two things going on. Either you have an insane ego because you think you're smarter than everyone, and therefore you're just looking down on people who may have different areas of wisdom that you don't have.
Or you have a Nobel Prize.
Or you have a Nobel Prize.
And you are the smartest person in the room.
Yeah. And in that case, you should seek out wiser friends. You know, I'm going to jump to my third point because it is almost the same as yours. Slowness to speak goes a long way.
Yeah.
Because I'm a person who I have like this weird, it's probably not weird, it's probably very common, but like sense of things need to be right and things need to be corrected if they're wrong. Like if someone has a wrong understanding of XYZ, like I need to make sure that they understand the truth. And one of the most ridiculous examples of me doing this was when I was 8, we would go, or when I was a kid, we would go to my cousin's house, my aunt, uncle, and cousin's house for Christmas. And in my family, my parents never told me that Santa was real. He was always just like a fun character. I knew my gifts came from my parents. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. But my cousins believed in Santa, and it bothered me greatly. It bothered me so bad, in fact, that I once spent an entire Christmas trying to convince my cousin that Santa was not real, to the point that I stayed up on Christmas Eve. Gosh, that's so cringe. I stayed up on Christmas Eve waiting to listen to see her parents, my aunt and uncle, wrapping gifts downstairs. And I was like, Brianna, look downstairs and tell me that Santa is real after seeing this. And she did. And I don't really remember what happened on the actual Christmas, but all I remember is having to write a letter to my aunt and uncle apologizing for like overstepping and yeah, just enforcing my own perception of what was right, and totally overstepping with my cousin and with my aunt and uncle. So that was the earliest memory I have of having a very strong sense of like, these people need to know the truth and I'm going to tell them in the most direct, blunt way possible. And I think that manifests now in like thankfully I have learned to just basically take a breath before I start saying something that I feel I need to be said. Like I'll hear something and it'll bring out like an emotion in me, like an angry, that's not right emotion.
Yeah.
So I've learned how to stop, take a deep breath, let that emotion go back down and really think about it. Think about other perspectives and think about, this person's, what are their intentions? Not just what the actual words are. Like, am I reading intentions into this person that aren't there? So just literally just taking a moment, not saying the first thing that comes to my mind, because it's either not 100% true, or I'm going to say it in a rude, blunt way. And it's because I am blunt, and I know that I have struggled with that all my life. I still struggle with it. Is there a way that if I still, after this time period, need to say what I need to say, let me make sure that I say it with kindness and consideration and tenderness and gentleness, and not with this feigned righteous well, not feigned, because it is real, but it's overzealous indignation over something that is probably not that big a deal. Like, I don't need to be putting my foot down about stupid things.
Yeah.
So very similar to yours.
Yeah. Taming, the biblical phrase, taming the tongue.
Taming the tongue.
That is a lifelong pursuit. It's a lifelong
The most dangerous
endeavor.
muscle in your body is your tongue.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I mean, from the time you're a kid, like, you had to say that. You had to tell your cousin that.
Yeah, it was like, to me, in my 8-year-old mind, it was right. Like, I believed the truth and she believed a lie.
Yeah.
And so I had to fix that. That's what I thought at the time.
Right.
But like, that was not mine. That wasn't my choice to make.
Yeah.
But I made it my choice to make.
Yeah. So yeah, from the time you're a kid till you're a old politician.
Oh my gosh.
Like, still.
An old geezer.
Like, it's, yeah. I don't think you could ever master it in this world, but
No.
it's definitely something you can strive for, and I think you can definitely get better at.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't think it's an
Thank
impossible endeavor, but I think you can definitely just be patient, sit back, breathe.
Control yourself.
Yeah, just breathe. Think before you speak. Like, I mean, that's essentially the same thing. as the phrase taming the tongue, like just thinking before you speak.
And that applies to online too, not just in person.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a lost art, is trying to, well, I mean, a lot of arguments that happen on twitter.com are not with the purpose of actually resolving anything. It's just with the, I'm gonna unload all my anger and everything else onto you because you're a nameless, faceless person that I'm never going to interact with again.
Yeah. Some people think they think before they speak or type, but it's very clear they didn't think one bit.
No. In my experience, there has never been a time where I've waited. Like if I've been unsure about saying something, there has never been a time that I have waited, like slept on it and regretted having slept on it. Like you're only going to gain wisdom and your emotions are going to calm down over time.
Yeah.
And you are going to, like, there have been times where I've been in some sort of conflict and I could have responded right away. And I was so grateful that I didn't, because I would have said things. You're probably going to say things you don't mean. You're going to say them in the worst way possible. You're going to say things you can't take back. So just if you're not, like if you're learning how to control your tongue, the greatest place to start is to just increase the time before you say the thing.
And this is why it's important to have friends, like good friends, and especially older people.
Yeah.
Because to go back to my point about being patient and to add on to what you're saying about like just sleep on it, is going to somebody who's had more life experience than you and going to somebody who's wiser and saying like, hey, I want to talk to this person. I want to talk to them about this. This is what I want to say. And you can be very, like if you have a very open relationship with that person, like you can be very vulnerable and you know you're not going to be judged, then just tell them everything that you're thinking and let them help you sort through your thoughts.
Yeah. And they might be able to point out something in you that you didn't see. Like, I mean, I think there have been multiple times where I've gone to someone about something and left with like a sense of, I need to reflect on myself because there's some things that I'm not seeing. And there's ways that I was looking at this that was like revealing
because
wickedness in my own heart.
Looking back on those situations, or like in my own life, like, yeah, I've definitely, the content of what I said wasn't wrong, but just saying those things kind of like, you kind of get into like a, oh man, this feels good to finally let it out.
Yeah,
like it's your first time like actually verbalizing it. And so you're like, oh man. And then so you get like, your energy might get a little too high. You get a little bit too intense. And then you just start rambling and saying
and
things.
you get all fire and brimstone on somebody.
Yeah.
And you're more focused on the feeling of unloading and the feeling of speaking over somebody and less about what ideally your intention is when you're confronting someone, which is, I've noticed XYZ in you that's hurting yourself and it's hurting other people.
Yeah.
I want to help you. As your friend and someone who knows you, I want to help you. So yeah, just take a deep breath. Seek wisdom from other people if you're not sure.
Yeah.
And at least don't just say the first thing that comes to your mind. Please.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, how many words I wish I could take back.
Yeah.
Over that.
All right. My second point.
Yeah.
Or we're not calling these points. What are we calling them? I don't know.
Things.
The second thing. There's a lot more of a lighthearted one. This is kind of like a, if this is more of like a, if I could time travel and like just,
If you could actually tell yourself something.
yeah, like, hey, like, you know, people always say like, you know, if you could time travel, going back to the, there's a certain, is it the 1923 World Series?
Oh yeah.
And betting on the, yeah. And so, if I could do that, I would time travel to in college when I first started like actually kind of buying comics, which that would have been 2014, 2015. Prices were very, very cheap. And I would tell myself to to buy certain first appearances of characters in higher grade. Not the highest grade, but in higher grade. I guess this is probably also like you can tack this on is to be a better steward of my money when I was younger. And so part of that would be, hey, go invest in Apple, go invest in Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Go invest in all the big stocks that are going to blow up. And then go buy these comics. But like in 2014, I knew who Moon Knight was. Like,
oh really?
I knew, like, you know, Moon Knight had been around since the 80s, so a lot of people knew who Moon Knight was, but Moon Knight wasn't like the pop culture
Sure.
like figure that he is now.
Wasn't no Avenger.
Right. So back then, the general audience, like, they knew Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. And so just knowing who Moon Knight was, like, back then, and just buying first appearances that I could, you know, like your dad, kind of when we talk about, like, he's like, man, I couldn't buy this book because I couldn't afford it. If I was a good steward of my money, I could have absolutely saved up for a couple months and bought these books.
Oh.
So your dad's a little bit different because he was a kid with a paper route, but I was like, I had an actual like job with consistent hours, and so definitely a little bit different than being a 13-year-old kid who's making 25 cents an hour or whatever it is. But gatos?
What are you doing? Are you being a bully, Ashley?
They're being crazy today. Yeah, so I would go tell myself, go invest in these stocks, go buy the first appearance of Moon Knight in a high grade, go buy the first appearance of Doctor Doom in a high grade. They're not with, and it would have taught me how to manage my money a lot earlier than I feel like when I like learned that. So, yeah, it'd also just be fun to, you know, have higher grades of those books or to have made the money on those books compared to what they were priced then compared to what they've skyrocketed to. So
you probably would have gotten into it a lot earlier.
Yeah.
If you'd seen a return quickly like that.
Yeah. So just a lighthearted, little fun one.
If we start getting into those like unknowable knowledge things, you mean you could have potentially known that Moon Knight was worth investing in, but like we start talking about Apple, Amazon, Bitcoin, all that stuff. It's like now we're getting into the regret territory. Hi, Ashley.
Well, man, I remember when Bitcoin was $9,000.
Wow.
Can you imagine? We could have.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No regrets. Ashley has joined us. You can't see, but he is right across from me at the table. Hi, bud.
And, you know, kind of on that, like, same train of thought train.
So
It's something totally different.
It sounded like you just came up with that phrase yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, a train of thought.
On that train of thought, there's things today that, like, you know, are probably worth buying.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
it be worthwhile to just buy every first appearance as they come out? Wouldn't that be?
I did that. Like, I would say I did that 2022 and a good amount of 2023. And I just realized you're putting a lot of money up front for holding out.
I mean, how often does a new superhero?
Oh, every week.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I always thought that was like once a month type of thing.
No. Yeah, every week there's a new character or a new book coming out or being introduced, and so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that would be a foolproof strategy.
No. Yeah, they're when comic books were coming out, you know, in the 40s with Batman and Superman, in the 50s and 60s when Marvel takes off into the 70s and 80s, it was the publishers weren't really. I think they knew that they were collectibles. I don't think they saw where they could make the profits on the collectibles. I think they just saw it as like, oh, people are picking up and they're reading our stories, and there's like this cool little like collectible fandom. It wasn't until the 90s where publishers and corporate companies, same with like trading cards, where they realized that they could now profit off of it on the front end. So that's when they just started mass printing and like mass announcing. So they would be like, first appearance of blah 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 is coming out this week, and then they'd print like, thousands and thousands of copies of this book, and the character could be cool, but it's like, well, it's not a hard book to find. You printed 1 million of them, so it's not a desired collectible.
Interesting.
So it toned down after the 90s, but they did it with sports cards where like companies were realizing like, oh man, like in the 80s, like people really started collecting. So, and now in the 90s, we're just going to like mass print. So they printed like 1 million rookie cards of like these athletes. And it's like, well, now
they're not worth anything.
Yeah, now it's not really worth anything.
So they made money on the initial sales, but then they didn't retain their value or grow in value, I guess.
Right. So
interesting.
They've evolved it and they've changed it. They've made it better for themselves in some ways, but yeah. Now it's kind of funny that the episode that came out this morning on our comic podcast is how to speculate well.
Ooh.
So it's like, how do you place your bets that a character is gonna blow up, or that a book is gonna get hot, or whatever it is. So
you can listen to that on the Comic Room podcast.
Comic Room podcast. At
link in description.
Link in description at spros_comics. But anyways, spending too much time on that.
I knew we would.
But yeah, I'd go by the first appearance of Moon Knight, first appearance of Doctor Doom, first appearance of Daredevil. All those books were cheap back then in 2014, comparatively to now.
Moon Knight.
So
I want to see like a good Moon Knight cosplay.
Yeah, I've
Next
seen
time we go to WonderCon or a convention or something.
Yeah, I've seen some.
Keep my eyes out. Nice. That is great.
Should we do one more each?
Yes. I only have one more, and then I have one that's going to take me about 2 seconds to say.
Okay.
My last
go
one.
Through both of them then.
Okay. I'll be quick. So this one is learning. This is not a hard and fast rule, but something that took me a long time to internalize is that learning is supposed to be hard. Specifically in terms of like it. So I think movies really highly praise or place a lot of emphasis on natural talent and like kids being prodigies and this like innate artistic
Malcolm
ability.
in the Middle.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stories, and those are really they're inspiring, but they're also kind of unattainable. Not to say that natural talent does not exist, because it absolutely does. But this idea of just kind of you waking up, trying something, and realizing that you're perfect at it in a way that is impossible, like that is obviously not realistic. But as a young person watching those movies and watching those shows, it was like, wow, maybe I have some hidden talent that I don't know about.
Yeah.
But what I think that did to me was it made me expect to be perfect or close to perfect at whatever it was. And if I wasn't, then that means it wasn't meant to be. So things that I was interested in, like playing guitar or playing piano, which I did take piano lessons, I took guitar lessons, things like soccer, volleyball, all of these things that I tried and didn't sense that I was like naturally, magically gifted at, are things that I just kind of left by the wayside. And I think I overcame that by just growing up, but also teaching myself art. That was also something that I was deeply interested in for my whole life, but didn't. The cats are like touching the cords. They're usually asleep when we record our podcast. All three of them are hovering around the table and like touching the cameras and the tripods and stuff. So a little bit on edge. So I overcame that fear or that like ideology by forcing myself and being convicted that I could learn something through effort. And I think I did realize over time through my own seeing it and through other people's feedback that I did have a natural talent because I was learning very fast and I was able to create artwork that I'm still relatively proud of very early on in my endeavor. But that talent didn't just like appear out of nowhere. It took effort to churn out. So I think my perspective on that has finally changed in a way that values effort as much or more than like natural prodigy. What's like I was looking for the adjective version of that. or adverb. Protagaic. No, that's not right.
Protagenius.
Protogenisms. Protogenisms. And perfectionism.
I'm protogening.
I'm gonna protogene. Yeah, and less value on perfectionism.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And then my last one is, if I could go back in time and tell myself this as a young adult, or even as a teenager, I would say, you can get over your cat allergies if you tank them hard enough.
Nice.
I have 3.
Thank you, Ashy.
Thanks, Ashy.
Yeah, my last one is it's kind of funny. Ours all kind of lined up. It's just like killing the fear that is paralyzing me from doing what I want to do. And I don't think I would, tell myself, hey, go back and like, you need to jump off the highest, thing, and you need to full send it into this. I think it starts with the little things. And I think in life that's just like generally true. Like,
he's shaking the tripod.
Oh, you could ask me. I could have pulled it.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I did interrupt you.
Ironic. Yeah, I just think it starts, or you kind of cultivate anything in the small moments in life when nobody's looking.
Yeah, totally.
So I think just killing that fear early on in those smaller moments, when it was like just me, instead of giving into the fear, would have definitely helped set me up for success later with bigger, more important things. But if in those small moments when it's just me and myself, and I have a decision to make, and I either choose fear or I choose, I don't want to say risk, but fear
bravery.
or bravery. What I choose in those small moments, that's what I'm cultivating and that's what I'm growing. So if in the small moments I'm choosing fear, that fear is going to start small, but then, later on, something else is going to come along. And I have an opportunity to choose fear or bravery. I've already chose fear before. I've cultivated that feeling inside me. And so I choose fear again. And I snowball it, and now it becomes bigger. And it's going to make itself bigger, and it's going to snowball and become this giant snowball. And then real life is going to come. And then I got to have this big monumental decision of fear or bravery. And then I'm going to turn around and look back. And it's going to be like, well, I've chosen fear this entire time and I've ended up okay. So I'm just going to give into it again because,
it's easier.
It's there and it's easier. Yeah. And I think you can take that mindset and apply it to anything. Just what you do in the small moments is going to affect the big moments. If you work, as a barista or just food service in general, like, cleaning as you go is just cleaning in like quick, small moments. Like, you make a spill, you wipe it down real quick. You see coffee grounds on the counter, you wipe it off. You clean in those small moments, and then, in 30 minutes, 45 minutes, when the rush is gone, you don't have as messy of a situation. Like, you don't have as big of a mess to clean. But if you're in a rush, you spill milk, you got coffee grounds all over the place, you got this, you got that, and you don't clean it up. And then when the rush is over, you're going to have a messy area, and you gotta deal with all that.
You have to pay for it later.
Yeah. So, just cultivating bravery early on and kind of murdering fear is what I would have, what I would tell myself, just specifically in the small moments. I wouldn't have told myself, hey, go make a life-changing decision. I wouldn't have done that.
Right. Absolutely. The small decisions, that's where you cultivate habits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Very wise.
I did have a fourth lighthearted one, but I can't remember it. Maybe when you were sitting in front of me in that one class, I would have tapped on your shoulder and introduced myself. But everything was perfectly timed.
I think if we went back in time, it would be hard not to. Like if one of us went back in time, it would be hard not to. Like, I mean, for our freshman year, I think I would have just ran across the campus until I found you. But that was not, you would have thought I was crazy for one. But also, I think we met at the right time.
Yeah.
We both had to go through something kind of significant.
Yeah.
Before we were ready to really meet.
Yeah.
And fall in love.
And I think you've said this. You probably wouldn't have liked me as much in college because I was not.
You were slacker.
I was a good student as far as my natural intellect goes. But anything
He's smart.
anything that required effort beyond what my natural intellect could provide for myself, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Specifically school related. When it comes to work and other things like working hard for a job or things like that, like that's not it makes sense, right? Because you work for what you earn.
Right.
But in school, I just didn't see the value of like college and a degree, and so it was hard for me to want to work for that.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'll do my homework. Maybe.
And I loved college on the other hand. I loved being dorm life. I loved just the practice of learning things, and even the subjects that I wasn't that interested in initially, I've always really liked dipping my hands in like lots of different pots. So It was easy for me to, we had very different school philosophies. So it's probably better that we met at a different time.
Yeah. When you said you'd run across campus to find me, that reminded me of the How I Met Your Mother episode when Ted runs across the city, goes to the mom's apartment, knocks on the door, and she opens the door and she's like, you don't know who I am. 45 days from now.
I can't think about that. It's sad.
That's one of the best moments in that show.
It is. It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts so good.
It does. Then they take it away by making.
I'm gonna bleep that. So spoilers.
If you haven't watched it by then, I'm sorry, but
you should watch him. Well, I'm cut that out as well. So it's a little controversial.
But I mean, that was the times. I think
times are a changing.
I think you can watch that kind of stuff and be able to be like, wow, I can't believe that's what it was like back then. Like these things were socially acceptable.
Yeah, the internet has vastly changed the speed at which things become socially unacceptable.
Yeah, but sometimes it's like there's a lot of wit with those types of things. Like sometimes it is absolutely definitely like, oh man, like this is just not.
This is perpetrating a bad stereotype. Like
yeah, but other times
this
it's
is
like
directly derogatory.
But other times when I say it's wit, it's like talking about an issue in a very comedic type of way, because that's what these shows are. And so I think Community is probably like I would give credit to Community for having wit and like going like
not being afraid.
Yeah, and just like
that's what you should watch. Community.
Yeah.
Community.
But other shows and other writers, they're not as witty as that Community writing team.
No. Too bad it wasn't appreciated in its time. We could have gotten an ending that was actually good.
We're getting a movie. I think they said they're going to start filming next year. So
let's go. Yeah. Community fans rejoice.
All right.
I think we did it. Good job. We killed it.
I
heard today on TikTok that a good judge of if you're this was dating, if you're dating the right person, if someone came up to you and said, oh my gosh, you're just like your significant other, would you be offended, or would you be, what was the other one? Happy or offended or something like that? And
why would I be offended?
Yeah, well, that's good, but some people date people they're not proud of. or trying to fix. And it was very easy for me to look at that and be like, oh, yeah, I can't imagine ever being offended of being told that I'm like you. I want to be like you.
even last night when I was like finishing the edit on that podcast, I was like, I had a finished product, and then I just kind of watched what you had done with the last couple episodes on this podcast, and I was like, I need to step it up. I need to be better. And so your work had like encouraged me to level up the production, and now I'm really proud of like kind of what the intro and the outro that I had made essentially.
Right. Yeah.
And then the thumbnail, where I was like, yeah.
The thumbnail difference from your first episode to your newest one. I mean, same for this one. This one was just a screenshot of the actual podcast.
But no, even last night, I think I was telling you this at the wrong time, so you didn't say anything, but I because you were working when I told you this.
Oh,
but
I was locked in.
Yeah, I think I came to this conclusion just by like thinking about conversations you and I have had about content and stuff like that. But I was making the thumbnail and I was going to use a picture of a book that's like really hot right now. And because, the title of it is How to Speculate Well. So I was going to use a book that's very relevant for right now. Then I looked at it and I was like, this thumbnail is only going to make sense for a couple weeks.
And it could age poorly.
Yeah. So then I just went and I just kind of typed in comic book speculation into the YouTube search bar. And everything that came up, I was like, I don't want to watch any of these because all this stuff is dated.
It's old.
Like these books are irrelevant now.
Smart.
So then I thought to myself, okay, how do I make something that's timeless? And I noticed one theme in like pretty much every single comic book speculation video on YouTube that they use in the thumbnail, and it was stock arrows.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay,
imagery. Let
me take that because that's imagery that, everybody knows. Stock market up or down, good or bad, green or red. And so I took that and I was like, okay, I'm going to use that. I can't use a book because that's going to immediately put a timestamp on it. So then I did like the rectangle thing and I made like a blank book with a question mark, and then I put the arrows in there and I was like, no, that's not quite it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had the thought, what's timeless? Marvel and DC. Just the logos of Marvel and DC. That will be timeless forever. No matter what movies come out, no matter what books come out, good movies, good comics, bad comics, those logos will forever hold their value and maintain their value. And people will always recognize it. And as soon as they see it, each individual person will have their own like thoughts about it. They'll have their own things that come to mind.
So then it evokes the click.
Exactly. So if they're like, oh, how to speculate well, Marvel. Oh, there's these Marvel books that are coming out that, I'm thinking about speculating. Or there's these, I see the DC logo, like there's these DC books that are coming out, or these DC movies that James Gunn just announced. And so, yeah, it'll invoke the click. So I was proud of myself because I had moved from something that was like probably already dated, to be honest, and then into something that I felt was timeless. And yeah, I just felt like I learned those lessons from just hearing you talk about content and normal conversations that you and I have had about content. But yeah, I was just proud of myself from like moving through, because even a couple weeks ago, I feel like I would have made that thumbnail and then I'd have been like, well, this is good enough. But I wasn't content with where it was at. So I was like, okay, I need to do better. So
it's always in that like extra 20%, extra 10% of effort where you're like, I could be done with this, but let me just spend a few more minutes thinking about this, thinking critically about it, and seeing if I need to go back and do better. And usually that's in like the last 10%. That's when it really polishes or it hits the mark.
Yeah. And I got
very satisfying.
I got a text from a friend this morning who said, I really like this week's thumbnail. Yeah. And he hasn't said that before. So the thumbnail is...
He went out of his way to text you that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
that's awesome.
That thumbnail is my idea, but your execution. You're the savvy one who
I just moved some stuff around.
The meta part of it.
I just wiggled some PNGs.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
Well, thank you for watching this
Thanks for
episode of
watching.
Logging Off. Probably our shortest one yet, so we're locking in. It was the shortest setup time and the shortest record time, and none of the cameras have died.
Woo!
So I'm just going to very quickly say thank you for watching,
Thank you for watching.
and we'll see you next week. We'll see you in the comments.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Ashley, you want to say bye? Are you fast asleep, honey? Oh, he's so cute, bye. I bet he's happy to be sitting up here with us.
He's at the dinner table. He has a seat at the table.